Hey, I'm Robert Pearson. This is Follow the Leader, and I would love to get back into my regular routine of making videos about deep theology stuff, but I am not in a place to do that right now. I got promoted to foreman, and my brain gets occupied a lot during the day, so I can't just put an earbud in, binge a bunch of heavy Augustinian theology, and then rant about it on the drive home for an hour. Not quite yet. So I'm just going to talk about some smaller, less heavy topics here and there as I drive home. That's the goal. I don't know. I'm winging this. I wish I had a mount that didn't move as much. It's obnoxious to me. Nope, it's just making it worse. Oh well. So, today, I was just thinking about, what are you building? Because everybody's building something. Even if you're building nothing, you're just, every day you're handed stuff. And so you can just throw that stuff in a pile, or you can lay it down neatly and try to intentionally build something. I got to thinking about this because I was talking to a guy at work, and we were just talking about how you go through the day and how you work the job. And in blue-collar trades, there's really only two paths to actually make enough money to really be able to live well on and like own property and stuff. And that's to work union for a long time, or to own your own company. That's kind of it. Unless you have a ton of credentials and you can trick some giant corporation into paying you way too much to sit behind a computer and approve plans all day. That's about it. Or you get into some bizarre nuanced field of, control wiring for a specific model of assembly plant robot or something. Unless you want to hunt down something like that, most folks, it's figure out how to own your own business or just work for the union. Because you can quite comfortably get to about a $45 an hour bump after you've been in the union long enough and, paid your dues. But for folks that are not, for the control freaks out there, which is my bend, I don't want to just put somebody in charge of where I work, how I work, what I'm doing, and just hope I can keep begging more and more money from them. And then the moment they run out of work, they lay me off for 2 months. It's... anything rough happens, suddenly there's an 800-man waiting list down at the union shop, I hope you're friends with a foreman somewhere. So the more reliable way, the way at least that puts you in more control, you also sort of take up all those headaches for the trade-off, is to run your own business. So every day that I'm working, I'm constantly using everything that I'm doing to figure out how would I do this when I'm in charge of things. When I run this, is this the best way to run these things? To order these parts? Is this the best kind of part to order? Since I spent all this time researching the part I ordered for this thing, how would I sell that to a customer? How would I explain this to them? What are the difference between, different kinds of wire mold? I'm thinking because I'm not just working. I'm intentionally decided that I'm building a business, even though I don't have any licenses to actually run that business yet. I've got enough hours, I just need to sit for the test, and I gotta binge a bunch of Mike Holt test prep stuff before I feel confident to do that, which, working on getting that done, at least before, during the holidays, we'll see. Anyway, but that's been the goal in mind from the day I started being an electrician like 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, I'm going to be an electrician. This electrician thing's working out and has potential. And then just, how do you do that? What's that do? How do I do this? All right. Everything I learned was another thing I could put on my resume. Another thing I could potentially offer customers down the road. we don't do it often, but I can splice fiber. Oh, Google fiber splicing or fusing machine. Fusion splicer. Oh, they're like $800, $900 on Amazon. Nice. I don't need one right now, but checking away on my brain. If I have my own business running, $1,000 grand, and I can add and fiber splicing to the side of the van. So that's the way that I've always thought, is how do I do this better? How would I do this if I were the one running it? Because it's really the only way to make a solid living in the trades, is to get your name on the side of the van and get a couple other vans running around town with your name on the side of them. And most of the guys I've looked into, they say about 6 trucks is tops. Beyond that, the headaches stop being worth the money, and you just have more and more headaches and don't seem to make any more. So I don't know. I'm not on that side of things yet, but I'm moving that direction. And that's what I'm talking about, is being intentional about what you're building. Woo. Because if you're an office type and you're not building your career, you need to think more in terms of building your resume. Because nowadays, it's very rare to be at a company longer than about 5 years. It just doesn't work that way anymore. And a lot of the older guys will tell you, well, you need to stick out at a company and then they're going to take care of you. No, they're not. If you stick it out at a company, you'll probably get about $1 an hour more every year for about 5 years maybe, and then it'll taper off to, whenever, maybe, a little bit. Whereas if you jump company to company, you stick it out at a company, you get a pay raise. After about 2 to 5 years, you start putting your resume around for other companies. In that 2 to 5 years, you need to have collected at least a certificate or 3 in your field, right? Continuing education for certification for this and renew that, and I can do these things. And then you take those certifications, and then you go apply until somebody calls you back and has an interview, and you ask for $5 an hour more, however salary jobs work, whatever would be an equivalent pay jump, $5 grand a year more, 10 grand a year more, whatever the salary comparison is. But that's what you do, is you have a bigger jump every 2 to 5 years, and then you stay at that company for 2 to 5 years. So you take the offer back to the company you're with, and they say, usually 9 times out of 10, they'll say, well, we can't match. We can't really do that right now. And then you go, well, bye. Early on in the game, you can get some big jumps. One of the guys I worked with at a data center did that. He was working at the data center for maybe a year or two, learned everything he could from everybody he was around about data pulling, how to terminate jacks, what these things are called, what this does. And he didn't really have any certificates, and he got a $10 an hour pay jump. Went right next door to the next data center, put an application in, got an interview, asked, and they gave him $10 an hour more. And so he came back to the original employer, who said, oh, well, we don't really think you're worth that. And he said, all right, bye. Boom, $10 an hour more. Do the same thing. Collect certifications, collect skills, things you can talk knowledgeably about. Actually be doing a good job while you're there, obviously. But have a mind towards building a resume. And that's your career, is all of the things that you've done make you more valuable. In the trades, it's not as much that way. There's a maximum amount you can really charge a customer for electrical work, for plumbing, for HVAC. And there's a minimum amount an owner will accept as a cut from your pay. Generally, most tradesmen, technicians, they're going to be billed at like $100 an hour. And the guy doing the work is going to get paid anywhere between $15 and $30 an hour, depending. And rest goes in the business's pocket. The rest, right? There's a portion on top for insurance and unemployment insurance. My brain's not working right now. Taxes, income tax, that kind of stuff. Like there's a fair amount that the employer doesn't keep out of that. Usually it's about 40% of what you make an hour on top of is how much it costs. Is how much it costs him. So if you're making, $20 an hour, it costs him $30 an hour to pay you $20 an hour. Is basically how it's factored. Anyway, still a lot, because most technicians, like I said, are billed in the $100 an hour mark. Sometimes 70, 80, whatever. So that's why the winning strategy is to get your name on the side of your truck and build your reputation amongst a decent-sized customer base to where you can ask that $80 to $100 an hour for just you. And then that money goes, all of it, into your pocket, instead of you having to work and give the remainder of that money to a guy who sits in an office all day. Not denigrating those people, it's where they're at in life, and if you can get it, it's a good gig. But that's just the facts of how it operates. That's the way it is. So the best goal for being the person who's at the end of the screwdriver is to get your name on the side of the truck, to have your truck with your name on it. So from day one, I'm thinking, okay, what tools am I going to need? Oh, I need to buy a bandsaw. Okay, what kind of bandsaw would I feel okay taking into a lady's house, having to work behind her sofa? So that's the kind of bandsaw I got. Yeah, it's a little underpowered, but you can make it work. She's tough enough to do what she needs. And anything bigger, a Sawzall will handle it. But that's the way that I've thought. That's been my underlying goal. So when you have a why, when you have a what are you building, the little decisions of what kind of drill should I buy, all of a sudden start lining up very quickly and easily. And so everything that I've done has been with a mind towards, I'm doing residential out of my own truck with my name on the side, because residential has a higher profit margin per gig, better than construction. Construction's where the volume money is at, but there's a lot of nuanced headaches and figuring out bids, and you got to know people and already be on the inside. It's simpler to be able to just throw a bunch of Facebook ads up and jump on some of these homeowner repairman search sites and pay them a little money to get your name around and just target a very specific geographical area, and then paper the area and get people and just start impressing them and build from there. And that's the kind of thing that you can be able to do on the side after hours on your own time out of a personal vehicle with your personal tools on evenings and weekends, to eventually you have a customer base where you can make that jump to do that. I'm nowhere near that. Nowhere near it. Mainly because a lot of guys who start doing side work will do it for cash off under the table with no credentials, and it's not technically legal. And I just can't do it, man. Can't do it. So once I get the journeyman's license, I can start doing those sorts of things, and then get my master's quick as I can, and it's going to be a fun time. But that's the main thing. I just kind of wanted to pose, for sure, a question of what are you building, and be intentional about what you're doing every day. What are you learning? What have you done today that builds for tomorrow? Exercise, right? Are you building your body? How many push-ups have you done today? If it's 1, awesome. Tomorrow try and do 2. If it's none, try and do 1 push-up tomorrow, or tonight before you go to bed or something. But every day be throwing a stone in that pond. And every day just 1 stone. I wrote a book. I'm an electrician that volunteers heavily at church, and I have 7 children now. Free time is a memory to me, which is fine. It's fine. I don't mind it. I'm not complaining. But to give perspective, though, I wrote a book. It took me 3 years at around 4 hours a week. But every week for 4 hours, drive down to the local Dunkin' Donuts and spend every hour after work until about bedtime doing book work. And then, next week, go right back. Another 4 hours, another 4 hours. Next thing I know, I start putting the book together, and I'm like, holy cow, I got a book. This is like a whole book. It's like a whole real book. So I will have said book for sale soon enough. There's been some hang-ups on the cover. I just slapped a cover together to hand to the publisher because I wanted it to be done. And it looked like a drunk cartoonist lost a bet. So he found an amazing artist who doesn't have as much time to put into it as we had hoped, but he's doing a fantastic job. So as soon as that's done and together, can start actually promoting it, which is going to be fun. But yeah, I wrote a book. Maybe I'll start going over what my book is about, a chapter at a time. There's not a lot to it. It's a very short book. It's less than 100 pages, but it's just like laser focused and dense. There's an entire chapter that's just like a whole chapter of statistics that are woven together in semi-coherent sentences. I'm hyperbolizing a little bit for humor's sake, I hope. I hope for humor's sake. But, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm just winging it. But I know at least where I'm going mostly. Man, I need a better phone mount. This is terrible. All right, that's it. Sayonara. And, yeah, have a good one. Somewhere there's a button on here to make it stop. Whoa. Whoa.